My name is Jamie, and this is the simplest true thing I can say about my childhood. When my parents split, they divided the world into teams. Dad took my brother. Mom took my sister. The state took me. No judge planned it that way. No social worker wrote it down like a menu. It just happened through 100 small choices and one long fight. My parents treated custody like a game with points. They pulled Nate and Lily like trophies toward their corners. I was the middle child with the wrong face on the wrong day, too much like both of them when they needed someone who felt like neither. When the dust settled, there was no chair with my name on it. So I sat in a plastic chair in a county office, and a caseworker handed me a trash bag for my clothes because we were moving again. People love simple reasons. You must have been a handful. Maybe you reminded them of their fights. Sometimes the oldest or youngest gets caught in the middle. They didn't know what they were doing. I have learned that when people do not want the truth, they give you soft pillows made of lies. You can sleep on them for years and wake up sore anyway. I lived in state care from 11 to 18. I learned to keep a packed bag and a calm face. I learned that birthdays are safer if you do not say the date out loud. I learned how to cook eggs in 3 different kitchens and how to be invisible when a foster home carried its own storms. I also learned kindness from strangers. A teacher who let me do homework during lunch in her empty room, a bus driver who waited when he saw me running, a foster dad who fixed a broken zipper without a word, and Miss June, my last foster mom, who taught me how to make soup that tastes like safety and how to choose furniture that will never hold a secret. When I aged out, I carried 1 suitcase, 1 binder of papers, and 1 firm decision. I would not chase people who had already shown me their backs. I worked nights at a grocery store, then mornings at a print shop. I saved and went to community college 1 class at a time. I rented a studio where the pipes sang when you turned on hot water. It was small, but when I locked the door from the inside, the lock listened to me. I did not hear from my family for years. I kept the door open in the abstract way you do when you are not ready but you want to be someone who believes in change. Sometimes I typed names into social media like a person pressing on a bruise to see if it still hurts. Nate looked tall and sure in every photo with Dad. Fishing trips, a new truck, a graduation. Lily changed hair colors like seasons and smiled with Mom in front of expensive restaurants. Their faces were lit by candles and bright screens and the idea that the worst parts had been solved by time. Mine wasn't. My parts were solved by work, friends I chose, and a houseplant that forgave me when I overwatered it. Years later, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. I let it go to voicemail. The message began with my name in a voice I knew from kitchens where I was not invited to stand too long. "Jamie," my father said. "It's Dad. Call me. It's important." 2 minutes later, there was a text from a number with a heart next to it that I had not put there. "Mom, I miss you. We should talk. Family stuff. Love you." A third ping arrived from a social account I did not follow. "Lily K. Crazy to do this here. But can we meet? Please." And then a fourth. "Nate, we need you. It's about Grandpa's place. Please call." It turns out "we need you" is a stronger magnet than "we miss you." I called Miss June first. "Do you want me to tell you to go or to run?" she asked. "I want you to tell me how to put on armor that doesn't look like armor," I said. She laughed the way people do when they are proud and worried at the same time. "Paper," she said. "You go with information. You listen more than you speak. You promise nothing. And we eat dinner after." I called Nate because his message had the one honest word in it: need. He met me at a coffee shop with a jaw like our father's and a nervous bounce I recognized as my own. He hugged me like someone who has learned to hug adults and is still bad at it. We sat. He started talking before the coffee cooled. "Grandpa Owen died," he said. "Dad didn't tell you. I should have told you. Sorry. There's land, 200 acres in the old house, but there's a clause. It says no sale or subdivision without the signatures of all 3 children of Richard and Maria. Mom and Dad are not together, but the will named them both as trustees for the grandkids' shares. And that means we all have to sign. You mean Lily?" There was a hinge the whole room now swung on. "Why sell?" I asked. "Taxes," he said. "Repairs. Opportunity. The developer's offer is big." He looked at his coffee as if it would perform math for him. They can't close without you. There are many ways to say please without saying please. He had used all of them. Why now? I asked. He took a breath so big it made his shoulders lift. Because we're sorry, he said quickly, like a kid taking a jump. It was messed up, what happened. You should have been with us. Dad says he tried. Mom says she did what she could. But we didn't call. We should have. I felt something steady inside me take one step to the left so the wave could hit and keep going. I set my cup down carefully. Thank you, I said. I meant it and I did not. I am sorry Grandpa died. I liked him. I did. He was the parent in the room who spoke in slow sentences and fixed things instead of blaming them. He had taught me how to push a mower in straight lines and how to check oil. He had not called me when I left, either. He had sent one card to the county office that arrived after I moved. Life is made of little porches where people choose to step out or stay in. He had sat on his. Nate looked at me gently. Will you meet Mom and Dad with us? All of us? We need a plan. And we need you. Information first, I said. Then plan. I went to the county courthouse the next day during my lunch break. The clerk at the recorder's office wore a sweater with small daisies and had a stamp that sounded like a heartbeat. I gave her Grandpa's name and asked for recorded documents, deeds, wills, anything with covenants or restrictions. She printed a list, scrolled, and nodded. There it was, Owen Carter Trust, 2 parcels totaling 206.8 acres, with a note at the bottom about a right of first refusal in favor of issue of Richard Carter and Maria Santos, and a bold sentence in the will, no sale, subdivision, or change of use without written consent of all living grandchildren of the marriage. It turned out the hinge was thicker than Nate knew. It wasn't just my signature. It was our consent as grandchildren, Nate and Lily, and the will had wrapped that around the land like a fence. I asked for certified copies. The clerk gave me a name of a probate clerk who could pull the file for public review. I used the copy machine that smelled like warm plastic and made a stack that felt like a spine in my hands. On my way out, I thought about something Miss June always says when she wants me to laugh and think at the same time. People can love you and still write rules around you. Read the rules anyway. I did more reading than sleeping that week. I went to the state archives to request the old custody file from when my parents split. I had never wanted to see it and now I needed to. A patient clerk with a pen behind her ear found the paper world that had rearranged my life. Petitions, reports, a judge's order in soft blue ink. The story was both what I expected and somehow worse. The judge had urged them to keep us together. They had insisted on splitting. He's a boy. He needs his father, Dad's lawyer had written. She's young. She needs her mother, Mom's lawyer had replied. The judge asked who would care for me when schedules collided. Each parent offered to take her as needed. The court flagged the phrase as needed. When fights escalated, the court ordered a temporary placement to ensure stability. My name slid under that line like a loose coin on a table. There was no villain drawn with clear ink. There were only adults who loved themselves more than they loved a plan. I sat in the archives until the alarm for closing, and then I sat in my car and breathed until my hands remembered how to be hands. I called an attorney, not because I planned a fight, but because I wanted someone who spoke court as a first language. Her name was Ava Lynn, and she did not blink when I told her the story in 3 sentences. 2 things, she said. 1, you have no obligation to sign anything. 2, if you engage, set your terms in writing. People can argue with a face. They have a harder time arguing with their own signature under yours. What would your terms say? I asked. She paused for 3 seconds, which I liked. Tell me what you want, not what you want from them, she said. I want honesty on paper, I said. I want an apology once that doesn't turn into a debate. I want my siblings to hear the truth under oath so they don't carry the lies forward to their future kids. I want any money they thought they would make off this land to be tied to something good, not to the idea that you can leave a child behind and still harvest fully from the earth. That last sentence is a mission statement, she said. Let's make it a paragraph. We drafted terms. They were plain and almost boring. That is my favorite kind of power. If they wanted my consent to sell, they would sign a joint statement of truth acknowledging the custody history from the court file without spin. A written apology for leaving me in state care and cutting contact, signed by each parent, without the word but. A funding agreement. A share of net proceeds, not less than 1/3, goes to a permanent fund for youth aging out of foster care in our county, administered by a neutral foundation, not by any family member. A conservation review. If there was a right of first refusal to heirs or a way to place a conservation easement on part of the land rather than sell it all to a developer, we would explore that first. A meeting on record with a mediator where everyone hears the court file facts. No shouting. Transcribed. A no-contact boundary if they refused. No further calls, no messages through siblings. I keep my life, the land stays until I decide. Ava wrote like a person who has met decades of mess and still believes in commas. She asked if I was sure about the 1/3 for the fund. I am, I said. If they want the rest, they can have it with the truth attached. You realize this makes you the hinge, she said. You're flipping the trapdoor. I realized I was always the hinge, I said. I'm just oiling it and writing my name on it. We met in a small conference room at a legal aid office because I refused to go to anyone's house. A mediator named Ben sat between us. He had a square, calm face and a fountain pen. Ava sat on my left. Nate and Lily sat on my right like bookends who didn't know which shelf to live on. Mom wore too much perfume and a jacket she wanted me to compliment. Dad looked at the table as if it had insulted him. Ben explained that this was not a trial. We are here to hear the same facts at the same time, he said. Then we will discuss proposals. We will write, not perform. He read from photocopies with blue stamps, the judge's order, the social worker's notes, the exact lines where each parent pulled one child and then argued about me until the order said temporary placement. It did not say abandonment. It said temporary. But temporary calcified into years because no one pushed a different choice to the front of the line. Mom cried in soft, practice drops. Dad said, it wasn't like that. Ben tapped the page with his pen. This is how the court wrote it, he said. You can give context but not contradiction. I watched Lily's face change like a day with fast-moving clouds. I watched Nate's posture fall into his elbows because the table had more spine than any of us wanted it to. They were reading about a story they had never been told because you cannot tell a lie that big to a child without eating it yourself. When Ben finished, Ava slid our terms across the table. Jamie is not here to hurt anyone, she said. Jamie is here to set conditions for future contact and for any consent related to the land. Dad looked up sharply. Consent, he said. It's our land. Ava put a finger on the sentence in the will that had the power. It's your father's land with a clause that belongs to his grandchildren, she said. Your children are the gate. Silence changed temperature. Mom dabbed under her eyes and then read the terms. She paused at apology and without the word but like she had seen a snake under a rock. Dad made a small sound that was not a laugh and not a cough. Nate touched the page with 2 fingers as if trying to feel heat through paper. Lily reached for my hand under the table and did not find it, because I had put both of mine flat in my lap. I won't sign an apology that makes me sound like a monster, Mom said. It makes you sound like a person who did a bad thing, I said, steady. You get to be more than that, but you don't get to be less. Dad said, and the money, 1/3 to strangers? He said strangers like a disease. To kids like me, I said. To kids like me then. So the next Jamie gets a bed and a counselor and a path and a scholarship and a person who shows up to court with them so they don't read their life like a report 60 pages long. So they have someone to call who is not the person who forgot them. Nate tilted his head toward me. That's not strangers, he said quietly. That's family we didn't meet yet. The room stood like a mountain for a few minutes. Then we began the climb that looks like negotiation but is actually the undoing of a story people told themselves to sleep. Dad wanted to keep 10 acres and the creek. Ava said nothing in the will prevented that if all grandchildren consented, and if a conservation easement could protect the creek. Mom wanted to close before year-end for tax reasons. Ben said tax reasons would not be the loudest voice in this room. Nate asked if there was a way to keep the old house and sell only part. Lily asked if she could write her apology by hand. I nodded. We took breaks. We came back. The sun moved the light on the table slowly like a minute hand you can watch when you are tired. On the last pass, Dad said he would sign everything but the apology. He could not write, "I am sorry," without wanting to add, "We did our best." He lifted his pen and stalled. He said the word "but" to the ceiling. "Then we're done," I said. "Not with a sale. With this room. With calls. With the version where I pretend I wasn't left." "Jamie," Mom said, surprised like someone who drops a dish and expects it to reassemble in midair. "Words build rooms," I said. "I won't live in one that blames me for being inside it." Nate took the pen from Dad's hand gently and wrote his name under the apology line meant for grandchildren. He wrote, "I am sorry I didn't call." "No, but..." He slid the page to Lily. She wrote, "I am sorry I didn't look for you." "No, but..." She slid it to me. I wrote, "I am sorry I have been angry in rooms that didn't deserve it." "No, but..." I am not a saint. Anger can leak onto people who have done nothing but stand close enough to be damp. Mom watched our hands and then put her own down slowly. She wrote, "I am sorry I left you to the state." "No, but..." She did not look up when she placed the pen down. Dad stared at the ink until the dots dried. He wrote last, "I am sorry I chose winning over keeping." "No, but..." Sometimes a sentence is a mountain. Sometimes it is a key. We signed the funding agreement. The proceeds would be split, 1/3 to the Foster Youth Fund at the County Foundation, 1/3 to be divided between me, Lily, and Nate, and 1/3 between my parents as trustees only for repairs and taxes during the year of sale. Any leftover from their third after those costs would move to the Foster Youth Fund as well. Ava insisted on that sentence like a person pushing a couch against a door before a storm. We also agreed to explore a conservation easement with a land trust. If it penciled, we would sell a portion and protect a portion, with the creek and the farmhouse staying under a plan that didn't rip out the parts of the map that taught us to be people. If it didn't, we would sell all with a riparian buffer and building limits attached. The developer would have to sign those limits in their deed. I wanted future kids to see water and trees when they walked by, not a row of beige. Ben read the final terms out loud and we initialed each page. He did not ask for a handshake. He knew better. On the way out, Mom touched my sleeve. "Dinner?" she asked, and for a moment she was the woman who taught me to squeeze limes with a fork and to taste soup with the edge of a spoon. I shook my head. "Not yet," I said. "Maybe later. Maybe when the papers have lived as long as the lies did." Nate walked me to the sidewalk. "You did that," he said, not like a fan, but like a witness. "You brought us to a table and made us read." "I brought paper," I said. "It brought itself." "Can we be around each other sometimes?" he asked. "Sometimes," I said. "Slow. We start with coffee and weather. We graduate to birthdays. We do not rush. We do not tell people who were not there how it should have felt." "Deal," he said. Lily caught up, breathless. "I don't know how to be your sister," she said. "But I want to learn." "Me too," I said. "Start with my favorite color. It's green now. It used to be blue. People change." We stood in the soft weather of a day that had asked too much and given something anyway. The sale took time because all good things do. The land trust walked the property with Dad and Nate. They found a way to keep the creek and the big oak and a strip where foxes live. The developer agreed to build around those things because people sometimes do the right thing when you put it on the line where their lawyer has to sign. The easement went on record like a fence no one could see, quietly telling future bulldozers, "Not here." The foundation opened the Foster Youth Fund with a little gathering in a room with folding chairs and punch. Miss June spoke before I could. She said, "Some kids learn to travel light because people made them. We are going to give them something heavy they can carry without pain." We funded beds, tutoring, therapy, bus passes, graduation fees, deposits for apartments for kids who proved they could pay rent but not security all at once. The first kid we helped sent a photo of a key in his hand with a caption that said "Mine." I printed it and taped it where I see it every morning. My parents sent cards with their check stubs. They did not write notes. That felt correct. We did coffee like I promised. Nate tells dad jokes and eats too fast. Lily collects mugs and facts about neighborhood cats. Mom texts to ask if I want recipes. I often say not yet. She sometimes sends them anyway. I file them under a folder called Maybe. When the money came through, I took my share and did two things my younger self would have liked. First, I bought a small row house with a door that doesn't stick and a porch that fits 2 chairs. I painted a wall the green the first told Lily about. Second, I quit the print shop and took a job at the foundation running the foster youth fund full-time. I file reports and meet kids and argue for line items people don't understand until they see a kid smile with a dentist finally fixing a front tooth that broke in a shelter. Sometimes I cry in the bathroom at work, and then I wash my face and go back to the spreadsheet because both are honest acts. One afternoon I drove out to the old farmhouse. The developer had built small houses that looked less like copy and paste and more like a row of careful sentences. The creek cut through like a blue thought. The oak stood like it had never been in danger. Dad was on the porch with a toolbox, fixing a hinge that complained when it opened. He said, "Your grandfather would have liked this," and I believed him. We sat for a while without making each other into heroes or villains. He asked if I wanted to see the barn. I did. It smelled like hay and thyme. He showed me a shelf where Grandpa kept bolts in coffee cans and labels from Mrs. Carter's hand. He picked up a can and held it like a book. I said yes to the apology. He said, looking at the label and not at me. I didn't think I could. I thought it would make me small. It made me quiet. Quiet is bigger than people think, I said. He nodded. You were the hinge, he said. We needed you. I wish we had needed you for the right reasons sooner. Me too, I said, because truth does not need seasoning. Lily and Nate joined us later with sandwiches and a 6-pack of something I don't like but will drink with people who are trying. We ate on the steps. An old dog from somewhere wandered up and put his head on my knee. I scratched his ears and thought about the hundreds of nights in state care when I thought no one would ever need me, and then about a clause in a will that said you must and a woman who said I will, but like this. Sometimes revenge looks like a slam. Sometimes it looks like a signature under a sentence that saves more people than it hurts. They wanted me for my signature. What they got was my terms, my truth, and a fund with my name in the line that says founder but prints it's smaller than kids served. They also got a sister who shows up to birthday dinners with store-bought cake and boundaries, a daughter who replies to texts on Tuesdays but not Sundays, and a person who does not sit at tables where apologies wear wigs called context. The last time I visited the creek, spring was loud. I stood on the little footbridge and watched water thread its way around stones. It did not fight the stones. It went around them and kept going. Some days I am the water. Some days I am the stone. I am learning to be the bridge. When people ask what happened in one line, I say, my dad took my brother. My mom took my sister. The state took me. Years later, they all wanted me. I let them have me, on paper, on purpose, and only as far as was good for the next kid like me.